All right. All right. It's Wednesday, so we back again. Demasha K, Zipmouth Motivation, and
Hello, my name is Dr. Sierra Davis of Holistic Soul Care. Glad to be here another week and glad to have our guest speakers. I'm excited.
yes, I'm very excited, especially to have some guest speakers so we can get a different perspective on our topic tonight. But the same disclaimer as the last couple of weeks. At this time, Dr. Sierra and I'm going to pray, and she brought something special tonight, so we get a little different from the sound bowl. And this is not something that you do. You can log off for a second and then come back on, and we will. It doesn't take that long. Okay, let me cut this off. Of course. Um, you ready?
Yes.
Lord, I pray that you would give everyone on this live the ability to seek peace, remove any evil eye, evil will, or evil words from the space. I pray for clarity, hope, and understanding. I pray that this message allows the viewers to look at themselves first before they look at anyone else. I pray that we gather together and that each person will receive something from the message. Ashe.
Amen. Amen. Thank you,
Yay.
Demasha.
Yes, ma'am. All right. I'm going to let you have it, Dr. Sierra.
All right. Again, welcome for another week. And I want to personally thank all of our attendees and our guest speakers. As we know, time is valuable and we have different time zones. So I just want to thank everyone for coming and for sacrificing your time. I'll start the first question. And as you feel led to, you can unmute yourself and just share your perspective. And then when you're done, you can, mute yourself and then we can just flow that way. So, my question to the collective group is, how do you define quality relationships? What comes to mind and what's your perspective on it? Whoever would like to start can feel free.
I'll actually start first if you don't mind. Hi, everybody. My name is Eric Gatson. I think quality relationships are based on two people that have an inward as well as outward love and compassion feeling for one another. That's number one. Number two, I believe that we all should learn to love ourselves and handle ourselves accordingly. So that's how I feel.
Thank you for sharing. And I forgot to have everyone introduce themselves. So before you give your perspective, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and anything you want us to know about you, and then you can share your perspective.
Well, like I said, my name is Eric Gatson. And that's pretty much it.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I guess we'll go clockwise then. Good morning for me. I guess good evening for you guys. My name is Ray Roberts. The question is, what is quality relationship? Right? It's still early in the morning
Yes.
for me. So what is
How do
quality?
you define? Yes, and it's probably what, about 3 a.m. your time or something like that?
2 a.m. No
2
worries. I
a.m.
will get up.
So
I'll be up in
thank
another
you.
hour anyway. So it's not a big deal.
Thank you. Yeah. How do you
Um,
define quality relationships?
Quality relationships are based on number one, responsibility. Both parties have to have a sense of responsibility, mainly to themselves first, and then to the other person. Um, after responsibility, uh, you have to have inward respect again for yourself and to the other person. Um, yeah, those are two are the primary qualities, in my opinion, of a quality respect relationship: respect and responsibility.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts.
Hello, my name is Derek L. Davis. Wow, what defines a quality relationship? A lot of different things for me. I wrote down a thought process about a tree. Two trees together, sharing roots, sharing water, sharing sunlight, and sharing space. And I think that's what creates a quality relationship, male or female. And if you go like two males trying to create a relationship, it's the same thing. A male and a female creating a relationship is the same thing. You got to share the roots that you have. We all come from different backgrounds, different situations. One tree is taller than the other, one tree is shorter than the other one. But even though one tree shades the other one, that's a good thing because too much sunlight for one tree is not enough for the other tree. So I think that's life for me. I think people have to really respect, like Ray said, respect each other, show quality time, show quality love, and work through whatever roots that are dying in one person's life to uplift the other person's life. I think that creates a quality
Wow. I would say I heard a lot of thank you. I'm sorry. I heard a lot of self first. I heard at least two people say self first and respect and inward, love that person inward. So I found that real interesting. A quality relationship to me is the same thing. Like just basically you gotta love yourself first. You know what I'm saying? Because if you don't love yourself, you cannot love anybody else. You know, you can't show them the proper kind of love. Um, and then I would definitely say respect. So I think that you have to respect that person for who they are because you accepted them. You know, like if you accept them, then you have to respect them. Um, and just remember that although you might have met this person like this, they may change over time because life changes you.
I agree. I agree. I also heard, being willing to help the other person. For me, quality relationships is, I think of give and take. I think of, all parties being invested, being committed. I think sometimes in a romantic relationship, I think there can be emphasis a lot on the lovey-dovey part. But to me, quality relationships, especially from that standpoint, is a partnership. It's a decision, in my view. It takes it's to me sometimes like a business. That two people decide that this is what we're committed to, and sometimes I think it's just that simple for me, beyond even just the emotional part is, we're making a decision to make this thing work. But anyway, that's just a little piece of what give is um, that the
Dr.
effort.
C,
Hmm.
I would say a quality relationship is a business. It's not like a business. It is absolutely a business. Uh,
Yeah.
I can tell you that when I go to work, that's a business, and
Yeah.
when I come home, it's a bigger business.
True.
I do the same things. I do the same things
Yeah.
at work. Actually, I probably focus on my business at home more, and I'm more concerned about it because I'm more invested in it.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes that's a bad thing because I get too compassionate about my business at home. And
Mm,
so sometimes I have to remind myself to be just as nice and polite as I am at work, and take that
that's
same
good.
home. Because at work, I'm not as invested. Um, but at home, we're talking about my kids, we're talking about my wife,
Hmm.
we're talking about things that I value. And so I have to remind myself not to be to show the same temperament uh, at home as I do at work, and
Hmm.
that's a part of responsibility and respect.
I agree. I agree. We're managing a lot of different things. And then you brought an important component is once you have children, that's a whole, you know, other component of business that adds multiple layers and responsibility. So yes, that's what I had to share.
Yeah. Also, Miss Demisha, is that am I saying that? I'm terrible with names.
It's
Demisha,
okay. It's Demasha, but you can say Demisha. My family calls me Demisha.
Demasha. I'm horrible with names. But you said that people might change. No, people will change. That is uh, My wife today is not the same person she was when I married her 8 years ago, and definitely, and I'm not the same person. So uh, people will definitely change. It's not a might; they will change, and more importantly, you have to decide for yourself how you want to deal with that change. And you have to brace yourself for that change. And that's a part of respect and responsibility, knowing that the person's going to change. They're not going to be the same person. How much are you going to deal with? Are they changing for the good, or are they changing for not so good? And so you have to decide what are you going to change. How can you help them with that change? I think uh, Derek, you talked about that, how you help them, that group, their roots still. How do you help them with that change? Because again, responsibility, you're responsible for that person. Um, they're responsible for themselves, but you're actually help responsible because it is a business. You're helping their business grow. So basically, it's two businesses together, right? The business of self and the business of family. And so you got to help that person's business and your business and the collective business and the business of the kids and the business of the dog and sometimes even the business of the neighbor. So that's a lot of businesses going on.
Yes,
I,
thank you. Thank you for that
mhm,
clarification. It is a business. I agree.
I agree. Okay, so I know we have a mixture of people. We have married and single people here. So before you all were married, you were single. Do you think that the quality of the relationship is the same being single? Because if you're a single person, how do you get to the quality of the relationship to even get married? Or is there a quality of relationship when you're just dating someone?
I think that when you are single, you have time to actually work on self first to bring those type of qualities into a relationship so that you'll be better for that next person. But I also want to add that I feel like all relationships is like working on a construction site. You have got to learn how to be hard hat certified because a relationship is a 24-hour a day job. And you got to be willing to put forward the effort in order to make something that may be ugly beautiful. So you got to be willing to put in the work. You got to be able to put in those grueling hours, those sweating hours, those back breaking hours. You and your significant other have to learn how to sit down and become that quality relationship that we're all talking about right now tonight. So it's not something that's going to be paradise until you make it paradise, but it takes two that became one to make that even happen. So that's what I wanted to add.
I
Anyone?
think you talked about being single and how do you get to the point of having a high quality relationship, and then you mentioned dating. So this is probably where I'm going to go off the rails a little bit and say, don't date. You shouldn't date. Dating will destroy a high quality relationship. I think a lot of people could have had high quality relationships with people, but they dated them for 3, 4, 5 years because it goes back to responsibility. You can't do. Derek talked about investment and sharing roots. How can you share roots with someone when you guys are apart, emotionally, physically, financially? The investment is not there. Don't date. That would be the prerequisite for having a high quality relationship. I didn't date my wife, and there's reasons for that. We can discuss one of those reasons because I'm Muslim, so it's forbidden in my relationship. And as someone who's converted from Christianity to Islam, that's probably one of the most powerful things that I have experienced. Now we vetted each other. We definitely vetted each other, and there's a process in that because I had my wants, needs, and expectations, and she had her wants, needs, and expectations. Um, and don't get me wrong, as Mr. Eric said, it wasn't paradise, right? Probably it's not paradise now, to be honest with you. I said, no, it's not paradise now. However, we're operating, we're moving, we get better each day. The kids have a lot to do with how well we function together. And going back to, I think Derek hit a great point. Um, we have to share, whether we like it or not. We have to share. I have to, because I'm older than her, I have to lead and show her things, and she shows me things, and I'm willing, and I have enough respect for her to learn from her uh, when the time is appropriate to learn from her, and the relationship is not always fair. It's not always fair. Sometimes it's one-sided, and normally I get the bad end of the unfair stick because, but that's just a part of the business.
Anyone else want to share their views on?
Wow, I'm sitting here in amazement, right? Because so many great points have been made. Um, I'm a barber, so you got to imagine being a barber. You get to meet so many different people in a day, and everything we're talking about has been talked about in the barbershop lately, especially with the new age of relationships. Um, I love what you said, Ray. I'm a true believer in not trying to truly date someone. Me and Sierra really never dated. We met, we became friends, we fell in love, and that was it. And we knew we wanted to be with each other. And we've been working that out ever since. Um, so I look at that and I think about all of that, and I'm looking at how people are up and down with one another now. If you don't have this, you can't have this, right? Instead of saying, okay, you have this, and we can come together and make one thing happen. And it doesn't happen like that anymore. People want to have a wife. Well, hold up, a girlfriend on a girlfriend on the side, a girlfriend and a wife on the side. So there's the dating scene and the love scene is completely split in half because, and please, you guys, this is how I think. So we're on this independent thought process in life right now. So if you're independent on one side, it's hard to be dependent on the other side, right? So that's what's making it harder for single people to find someone to love because we are so independent in our business, but we don't want to share the other side of the business. If we look at a lot of different businesses now, it's cooperations, right? It's corporations. We see a name, but we don't know who's behind the business, right? That's Davis Corporation. It could be 100 people behind Davis Corporation, but it's only one person. You know what I mean? So the independent thought process, I think, is what's creating the separation of love and dating. And Ray made a great point, and Eric, you did too. I'm a construction guy, ex-construction guy too, bro, and I know beauty doesn't come until you finish the project. You know what I mean? Until the grass is laid and everything is cleaned up. Um, but life for all of us has been so split apart from what it means to be in a relationship, um, because again, the independent thought process. So
I think also too, you have to take cultural considerations, and we have to be humble to learn from our elders, the people before us. Um, why I don't believe in sticking your hand in the fire. You can learn a lot from people who have been in real relationships. Uh, be humble, learn from them, have a mentor. I think having mentors, people who have been in long-lasting relationships, and I think that's one of the reasons why I hold strong to my relationship is because I had good mentors. I had people who have been married for, you know, decade, 50 years, 40 years. And I've always observed them ask questions, and really try to emulate what they were doing because it worked. Obviously, 40, 50 years, it absolutely works. And I think that's what's missing today is that we don't respect our traditions enough. In fact, there's probably not probably, there is a effort to disregard traditional values, processes, cultures. Um, if we hold true to our real roots as African Americans, we would never get divorced. Our our grandparents and great grandparents, the challenges they had to face and their ability to stand strong and make committed relationships out of nothing is amazing. So if they can do it with nothing, and we can do it, then we can do it with our phones and our Lexuses and our nice big houses.
Wow. Oh, y'all all made a lot of great points.
Beautiful.
Very. So, what do you think the issue is with the commitment? Because I know, like, even in marriages, people are having a hard time staying committed. Like you said, people are getting divorced left and right. Um, I like the point you made about elders because I'm thinking, like, where are the elders? You know what I'm saying? So, what is the issue with commitment?
I don't
I
want to
think
dominate the
nowadays,
go there.
I think nowadays people are scared to be committed to one another because they have not been able to release the baggage of the past, and they still carry a lot of hurts. And inside their mind is still in disarray. So they don't know how to commit themselves to someone else if they don't even know how to commit themselves to self-help. So I think it's harder nowadays to do things of that nature for that very reason.
Good
That's what
point.
I think.
Good point, Eric. So it's basically they can't commit to themselves, so they're having a hard time committing to someone else. Anybody else want to share a viewpoint?
On So the question is on commitment, being faithful to one another.
Just committing, period, committing to a quality relationship, like with your spouse, or being faithful. Just that whole entire commitment. Any part you wanna share.
So again, this is probably where you guys may disagree with me, um, but as far as number one, we talked about it from I think everyone hit on it. You got to make sure you take care of self and deal with self first. You just mentioned that, but you also have to know what your want, needs, and expectations are. Right? You have to. So even if you're all well put together, right? You got to know what your want, needs, and expectations are, and you have to be with someone who's at your level. That's you you have to marry your equal in many ways. Don't necessarily have to be financial, but you have to marry your intellectual equal. It's uh it can be challenging, especially if you're at a younger age, to try to play superhero with someone when you're trying to be your own superhero. Everyone, going back to the business analogy, everyone has a business. They need to run their business, and they need to run that business well. Going back to what Derek said earlier, then you create a corporation, right? You collaborate together, but everyone has to do their part, and their business has to be well. So one of the things that I believe is you definitely have to marry your equal unless you're a little bit older. All right, if you're a little bit older than a person, and then understanding that when you're a little bit older than a person, now you're taking on a different role too. You're not just husband, but there are going to be times where you're father, right? And then you have to also, then there's going to be times where you're our brother, right? Because that person, there's a gap, there's an intellectual gap there. I tell teachers all the time, the difference between you and the students is your age. You're not your students. Don't think just because you're all black or you're all white or you're all Muslim or you're all Christian, right? I'm in Saudi Arabia right now. Students, everybody wears the same clothes, white thobes, right? But they're not all the same. Every last one of those students are individually different, even though they are Muslim and they wear white thobes. They're different. They all have different wants, needs, and expectations. And don't think for a second, oh, No, we're the same. It's the same thing in a relationship. You're not the same just because you went to the same school or your same affiliations or your same city. Understanding that there are going to be differences. However, you should marry your equal. Now, the other part is about as far as being faithful. You have to define what faithful is. Okay. Now, no man or woman should go out and step out on their spouse. Bottom line, shouldn't do it. However, that also should not be a controlling factor. Now, if you married somebody who was stepping out on you and they were clear, or it was obvious that they were, they're not going to automatically overnight stop stepping out on you. Don't. If you were in a relationship with somebody and beforehand they had 4 or 5 people always in rotation, you think that's going to automatically stop? That energy doesn't just go away just because you said I do. So you have to be realistic. You have to set those terms up front, and and you have to have honest conversations. I think when it comes down to being faithful, a lot of people just stick. It's the ostrich effect. They just stick their head in the sand. And they just pray, I hope he doesn't cheat. I hope she doesn't cheat. I hope she doesn't cheat. I hope she doesn't cheat. And that's just not the proper way to deal with it. If you respect, going back to respect and responsibility, if you're respectful and you're responsible, then you're able to have conversations about where you guys are in that realm and have expectations, right? I'm in a country where people have 4 wives. And after every Juma prayer, I'm always asked, when are you gonna get your second wife? When are you gonna get your third wife? And interesting enough, going back to the elders, listen to older. I don't listen to people younger than me on this topic, but it's interesting to hear people who are in their 50s and 60s who have multiple wives, because what I hear when they talk about having multiple wives, I don't hear this party. Hey, I got all these women. I hear responsibility. I hear respect. I hear reciprocity. I hear having to separate their time equally amongst their families. And so it's a totally different energy than in the Western culture when we talk about, polygamy. We have this idea of just, this, bordello and just amazing. It's not that. Because the way culturally, the way they look at this idea of faith and being faithful is different. When you take on a second spouse or a third spouse or a fourth spouse, that's a responsibility. And you have to give your second wife the same amount of energy, time, effort, and money as you do your first. And if you take 3, then you times it, divide it by 3. And if you take 4, you divide it by 4. So what happens is you don't have a nation of people running around with 4 wives. In fact, most Saudi men will say, no, I just want one. I just want one. And they only want one because they understand the level of responsibility. And so in Western culture, if we took on that same level of responsibility, okay, and if we're honest, hey, look, this is what I feel on this. And why is this important? This is important because we live in a highly sexualized culture. It's highly sexualized. So we cannot say for one moment that you got people walking down the street dressed the way they dress. That level of temptation for both men and women equally is high. And some of us are not that mature or haven't grown that high to deal with that. We're also in a culture where people don't respect boundaries. People want your man. People want your woman. And they're actively seeking that. And that's a reality. So we have to be mature. So when our husbands and our wives they go outside and they're away from us, there's a lot of temptation. David saw Bathsheba on top of that rooftop. And he was like, Bathsheba was married. David's like, oh man, I'm gonna make the bad move here, right? So if David, with God's anoint blessing and all the amazing things he's done, and he's being an amazing leader, he still made a poor decision, and a lot of us are not at the level of David.
True. True. Anybody else, Dr. Sierra, you want to speak on commitment?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna give the space to them.
Okay.
I do
Anybody
have a
else want?
question,
Okay.
but I'll leave that until to see if anyone else wants to add.
Yes, commitment. You know, it goes back to listening to your elders, right? I grew up in a technically a dysfunctional house. You know, you look at the breakdown of my upbringing, it was dysfunctional, right? But my grandmother and my grandfather was married probably 60 couple of years, maybe I think 60 some years. And they had 13 kids and X amount of grandkids and X amount of great grandkids. And they took care of pretty much every last one of us. I'm not saying one of us, pretty much every last one of us that's in my age group had to at least stay at that house a few months to a year to live under that roof, right? And they were committed to one another, right? Because of the time, right? That time at that time, you had to be committed to that person because really, you can go outside the house, sleep around, whatever, but nobody else was going to take care of 13 kids, right? So, and plus the grandkids, right? So today's today's market of commitment is how much money do you have? What kind of car do you drive? What clothes do you wear? Where do you hang out at? I heard a story today. The guy said he was married 20 years, and his wife, they divorced. His wife started hanging out partying. Now he didn't go into the depth of what she was doing as she was partying, but you can read between the lines of what he was trying to get at. She wasn't committed to him anymore. She was committed only to herself. So, and there's nothing wrong, that's her thing, right? But I'm using all this for an example to say that I truly believe that commitment today, compared to before, there was a need for commitment. Unlike today, there's really no need to commit to someone because you can do it all by yourself. That's what we are taught now. We've been taught for the last 20 years to do it by yourself. And if you find someone else to do it with, okay, cool. If not, let them go. There's more fish in the sea, which it is, but all the fish in the sea don't taste the same. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say that. So that's how I look at it, right? People don't want to be committed. When I married my wife, I knew that day that I had to cut a lot of stuff out of my life, right? I just knew. I wanted to do it. Has it been easy? No, but I wanted to do it, right? Because I wanted this relationship to work. There's days I don't want it to work, but I still come home. I still look at her. She look at me. We can look at each other and walk the other way. But at the same time, we are committed to what we believe in, right? And you, like Ray said, you gotta believe in what you signed up for. And it is a job. But like a guy said today at work, he said, I just can't quit my wife, right? A job you can give a 2 weeks notice and quit. But you just can't give your wife, hey babe, I'm gonna put my 2 weeks notice in. Love you, peace. You know, because you're gonna hurt so many other people and yourself. And some things you can't come back from. I think that's the difference. You just really can't come back from certain situations. And commitment. My grandmother, my grandfather taught me that no matter what, you gotta really look at why you with this person, and what that person can offer you and what you can offer that person. Um, Look at the platform you guys are on right now. Y'all offering us something, right? You know what I mean? And that's a commitment from all five of us on this thing today. And that's how I look at it. We got to say, okay, time is money, but we're going to make money together. And let's be committed in putting it together. And so that's just my thing on relationships. We don't, okay, I guess everybody who lives in Florida, we've heard this in the last 3 years. I moved to Florida to live a hot boy summer, a hot girl summer, whatever they say, right? I'm gonna live my best life since I'm in Florida. And they and again, forgive my language because I don't want to hope, you know, but everybody's as the lady, the Braxton lady said, spread it. What did she say? Spread it low and
Lid
wide.
low and spread it wide. Yeah.
So that's what people move. That's what people have moved to Florida to do. So I told someone the other day, and I said, if you're looking for a quality relationship, leave Florida. They was like, what? I said, you're not gonna find it here. You leave Florida and go somewhere else where they are built into quality relationships, you'll find one. But here it's so hard because you can go from one side of town and not see the same person twice. But you probably slept with them, but you don't even remember that person. You know, so that's the commitment that people don't have. So I'm done.
Also, we have to look at things psychologically, and I know Dr. Ciara could speak on this. And you got to look at things historically, and from especially as African Americans, we have been socially engineered to destroy our families. What? Because as somebody who's well traveled, I'm going to tell you the biggest financial instrument is family. That's the biggest financial instrument is family. And then as African Americans, we have been trained out of looking at family. We look at family as a burden, right? We see it as a burden. It's a cost, right? We tell our kids, when you turn 18, you got to leave here. And that's the most ridiculous thing you could ever say to family. All right. My kids are not going anywhere until they're ready, and I'm not going to let them go anywhere until they're financially ready. And you know, this, so we have been trained to, we have been socially engineered to deconstruct. So you'll have people saying things like, what is it? Drop it low, spread it wide. What is that?
Lay it low and spread it wide.
And then so you will never hear that in other cultures. You will never hear women say that in other cultures, because and I deal with, and guys, I deal with 50 nationalities every day, different. And family is first. It's only in Western culture where family is not first. So we have to understand that that once you take on a different mentality, how you deal with family is different. It's amazing. You know, I love America. I love America. Yeah, I'm an American. However, it's amazing to see how other cultures live. It's amazing to go to the mall on a Friday or Saturday and see husband, wife, kids, and to see a single person is the single person is the odd person out. That you see everything is all family. Everywhere is family, to the point you go, man, I just want some adults, one or two kids running around, right? But and it's not just here in Saudi Arabia. You see it, and then you go to Thailand, you see it. You go to India, you see it. It's just in Western culture, and we got to understand that as African Americans, we have to not follow Western culture, right? Because it's gotten us in a lot of trouble, all right? We can't be like them. We can't assimilate. The assimilation doesn't work for us in America. I don't think separating working doesn't work for us either. If you look at people who migrate to America, they keep that sense of family, right? All the people that's come across that southern border, they keep in a sense of family. They will live 8 people in a house. They build new families, right? Because they understand that's the biggest financial instrument. And to your point, Derek, when you had that struggle, the mother of invention. What's the mother of invention is necessity. When you had that struggle, those bonds build deeper, right? I'm reading a book called Different now by Franz Hans. It's a very interesting book about our relatives, our genetic relatives, bonobos and chimpanzees, and how they deal with this idea of family. It also gets into gender, but it's a lot about family and community. And it's based out of this idea of survival. And you understand what happens is when we lose that sense of necessity, then things like commitment, things like family, things like responsibility, all those things go down the toilet, and you start to hear self. So if you go back to, if you remember, was it high school? I don't know, maybe it's college, but Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Remember that? Maslow's hierarchy of need. And what's the top of the hierarchy? Self-actualization, right? And what's underneath self-actualization? Esteem. And what has happened is, especially as you know, we as Black people, we're amazing. We have overcome some amazing things, and do you understand that African Americans are the richest Africans out of the diaspora? We're richer than everyone. In that East Coast of America, there's more Black wealth than anywhere else in the world. Do you understand that? And how so? If that's the case, how are we in the situations that we're in? Because we lost that sense of family. Because the financial instrument is not currency, it's family, right? So when you have that, you don't see people saying drop it low and spread it wide or whatever it is, right? That concept, because that's no longer the focus. The focus is building wealth, and it's the same thing you see in other communities. And Kanye is in a lot of trouble because he said certain things about certain people that everything he says is not off the rails. He's tracking on some things. His message gets lost, right? But what he's saying is that in the African American community, we have lost that sense of family. That's the real message that you should get out of what he's saying. And more importantly, we're stuck in esteem. I just bought $1 million house. My name is Dr. Raynor Roberts. And we get stuck in that instead of elevating to self-actualization, where I want to help you. I want to build your business. I want to do this. Because if you take on that mentality, you take on a family mentality. So if I'm here, I need my wife to be here. I need my kids to be here. So that means my kids are not going to have low grades. If my kids don't have low grades, then we winning as a family. Then we go out on family outings, and then you happy with your wife because you're helping your wife build and that energy and that synergy, and you get that connectiveness, and that spreads to a neighborhood and communities. But we have lost that in the African American community. And in 2022, the last thing we should be talking about is family. We should be talking about how we're going to take over Wyoming, how we're going to take over these states and become our own governors and have our own national guard and have our.
But I've been saying it for a minute, bro.
Right.
That's all.
So the reality is this conversation is a lot bigger and has bigger implications than just people being happy in a relationship. It has everything to do with how we thrive as African Americans, because the instrument of success is family.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm going to throw in a question which might feel like it's going backwards, but it's a theme that I heard all of the panelists talk about, and they talked about working on self. Like before you get into all of this beautiful building of your spouse and family, that you have to work on self. Can you share some practical tips for our listeners on things that you've done and things you recommend to perhaps other men you mentor or women you mentor that has helped you as you extend it out towards building your family and your relationships? What are some practical things as a single person or as a married person that hasn't quite gotten there yet that they can do to get ready or to fine tune themselves?
So I think that you first have to hold yourself accountable for your own actions and self. Because if you're not willing to hold yourself accountable for your own actions or decisions, then you can't first work on self, because you're still playing the blame game. You're still pointing the finger at someone else instead of at self. So sometimes we got to learn how to point the finger at ourselves. We got to look ourselves in the mirror and say, hey, you messed up. You got to be willing to do that sometimes. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're not really ready to work on self. You got to educate yourself, elevate yourself to be a better self. And in order to do that, like I said, you just got to suffer the consequences of what you put yourself through. Your own actions put you in certain situations. Now, how are you going to get yourself out of those situations? You have to learn how to break it all down and rebuild it all back up to be one good self. That's what I really think you have to do.
Thank you. So a lot of evaluation of self, decisions, kind of going back, looking at decisions, behaviors, and really start really piecing those things apart in terms of why you did it and all of that sort of thing. So that self critique.
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to piggyback on what Mr. Eric said, because it is about self. So now that we know that it's self, how do we go about doing it? And it's having a perpetual mind of critical thinking, right? That you apply for yourself, and then you will begin to apply to other people. So one of my big things is wants, needs, and expectations. Figure out what your wants, needs, and expectations, what they are, right? And they can change, but figure out and know what they are, right? And you should be able to communicate those. But here are 5 things that you need to do to work on self, like Mr. Eric said. And it's really grounded around critical thinking. First, you have to observe. If observation is the key to all success, you have to be able to look inward and outward and be able to observe what's going on and be honest about what you see. Okay. After you observe, you need to be able to analyze what you see honestly. And sometimes you need a life coach to help you analyze what you see, right? And not sometimes, all the time. All the time. If you think you're going to do this by yourself, you're a fool. You're an absolute fool. Don't be a fool. Get yourself a mentor. Get yourself a life coach. Some of us need therapy. Listen, the psychological effects of slavery still exist. LBJ's Great Society still exists. The effects of that still exist. We need to deal with that, right? We have mental health issues in the African American community. We have mental health issues in America, but particularly in the African American community. You need somebody to help you analyze what you observe. That person cannot observe what you observe, but they can help you analyze what you observe. Once you're able to analyze what you observe, that person can also help you and collaboratively infer. All right. So what did I get out of this analysis? Right. Once you're able to infer, because that allows you to broaden your scope. Once you're able to infer, then you're able to communicate. Right. When you're able to communicate, you're saying, look, I got this problem. And this is where I believe the source of the problem, because we've discussed it well. This is what I need. These are the resources I need. When you communicate, you're advocating for yourself. And that's one of the biggest problems that people have, is they're not able to advocate for themselves. And then they get into relationships and they're not able to advocate for their wives, and they're not able to advocate for their children. And this is where we get the breakdown. This is where the problems occur, right? Because in order to being able to advocate for yourself, you have to be self-determined. You have to be, you have to have self-efficacy, right? And you have to be self-regulated, right? And you can't get there if you still stuck in the observation phase, because you won't look at life seriously and honestly, right? And then finally, once you are able to communicate your needs and you gain a network of people that can help you get to where you got to go, because we will do this through community. And let me tell you, another thing I learned from living abroad, call me us helping us. Racism is not just in America. Racism is systemic worldwide. All right, and let me be clear. As somebody who's highly educated and all that good stuff, it doesn't matter. We're all one and the same. Right? High school diploma, high school dropout, PhD. Why? Because everyone in the world looks at us a certain way. We're all supposed to be rappers. We're all supposed to be dropping the low, and I like that. Drop the low, shake it high. What is it?
Lay it low,
Right?
spread it wide.
See, that's we laugh, but that's a negative image that
It
other
is.
people grab onto and say, Sierra and Demisha, you're supposed to be dropping the low and spreading it wide. Now, don't try to go out here and get a good relationship. Don't go out here and have good kids who are, pillars in the community. We just need you to drop, and that's how the world looks at us. So, being able to communicate our needs, gaining networks to finally problem solve. Once you're able to do all those things, you're able to work on your problems. And again, you need a life coach, you need a therapist to do that. If you think you're going to do this without someone's help, and it really needs to be somebody you don't know. It needs to be a life coach. You need to hire somebody. People. We can get to that later, but talking to somebody you don't know, you're getting real honest and systematic results versus talking to someone who may be invested, who may be envious of you, right? So hire somebody that you don't know, who can be unbiased and help you observe, help you analyze, help you infer, help you communicate, and help you solve the problem.
Derek, did you want to share something?
Wow, that was great. I mean, whew. I got a thought. I'm a thought person. I think a lot. One of the things I teach people is, Eric said it, you look in the mirror, right? I always tell people, people always have body image problems, right? I always tell them, take all your clothes off, right? Just get naked as possible and look in the mirror and tell yourself what you like, what you don't like, right? Then put some sweatpants on and look at yourself in the sweatpants. Take those off, put a suit or a dress on, see yourself in that. And then start analyzing all three of those phases, right? Naked, clothes, and different types of clothes. Then analyze your thoughts and how you feel about who you are in those 5-10 minutes of looking in the mirror, right? And that's life. And it goes back to what Ray was talking about, how for me, I thank God at the time that my life was moving, he found me a mentor. Because that mentor, again, taught me to strip away the old and bring in the new. And I think that's the issue with our younger generation, even our older generation. We're so strategically taught to be hip hop, right? I hate to use that part of who we are, but we're not hip hop. We are Black Americans or Black people, right? Or American people who are darker skinned, whatever words you want to put in. But I think for a lot of us, we don't see who we truly are. We are power people. But we have to strip away what someone else said about who we are. And once we can strip that away, we can become way more powerful in relationships and family and in business. And I had a guy from Canada the other day. This is so crazy. As we were talking about this, and it goes broad of how we're talking about. He's a Black guy from Canada. He's like, okay, man, every time he would ask a question, he kept saying, why? I'm like, bro, the system in America doesn't work for us. Why? He kept saying, why? I'm like, bro, it just don't work. I said, every time a Black person in America tried to do something, they took it away. But why? He kept asking that, and as he kept saying it, I was like, I get it now. They didn't take it, you gave it to them. You keep giving them what they want. And when he and I told him, I said, bro, man, you got to have a conversation one day. We had to do a podcast on this or something because it was that deep, right? Because he kept saying, why? We are strong enough not to allow that to happen. But it goes back to what Ray was saying and Eric was all of us saying. We got to strip away who we are to become who we are. And what we are is a powerful people. Us five right now, we can take over the world. And that's no lie. I've been telling people the last year, if all five of us walk in the bank and ask for a loan, they tell us no. Okay, thank you. We'll walk into another bank and ask the same thing. And eventually somebody's going to give us what we need. Why? Because we're all together and we've all got a plan to what we want to do, not what they want us to do. And I think that is the terminology of Black Americans that we need to all help to strip away. Um, is
If
the
we, if
need
we all worked in the, if we all walked in the bank, then they denied us a loan. We create our own bank.
that, bro. Right. And that's it, man. And I know we's on relationships, but this is a relationship to me, right? This is building a relationship. This was a
This is not off topic. This is not off
no,
topic
no.
because if this is not right, relationships won't be right.
That's it. And that's
True.
how I look.
So
And that's how I look at it, man. This is I'm and again, I don't want to keep talking about um, how much I saw as a kid, right? I'm gonna give a quick story. I played football, right? And supposed to have been pretty decent at football, especially from little league to high school. And I got to high school and I didn't grow in, right? So that kind of stunted my progression in playing football. But as time went, I started seeing what was taken away from me. And it wasn't football, it was who I was. The person inside was being taken away from me because the money started pushing me out. If that makes sense, right? The people who had money, which was, I hate to say the color, but they pushed me away from who I was. So now in turn, I started doing what the street life started teaching, not what I wanted to do. So I say that to say, as Black Americans in relationships, we got to stop looking at the TV or what's the Kardashians everybody say. I don't want to be a Kardashian. I want to be Derek Davis. You know what I mean? So strong Black male with strong Black women.
Can I also add something? I heard David, Derek, I'm sorry, I apologize. I heard you say about giving someone else your power. So something I read one time in the courthouse, I was going to pay my last little bit of money for probation, and I see something up on the wall, and it said, do not allow yourself to become upset by people or things. Your reaction is their only power. So we can give people all kind of power over us, but we got to learn how to deal with that, even in relationships. Now I'm gonna refer it back to a relationship because if you are always willing to be a talker and not a listener in a relationship, you're giving your mate power over you. So that's why I say it's all about. Somebody else said something about self-evaluation. It's all about evaluating self in order to work on self, in order to be better for someone else in the long run. So it's all tied in into one. It seemed like we had kind of got off relationships, but it wasn't. Everything tied into one. So I just thank y'all for all the insight tonight on everything that's being shared because it all goes hand in hand, no matter how you look at it. So I just wanted to add that just by listening to you guys, it just chimed on me like, wow, this does make a lot of sense. Everything is making a lot of sense. It's going full circle.
and thank you for your contribution. I'm aware of the time that our live is for an hour, so 7 to 8. So Damasha and I are people that try to stick to it to respect everyone's time. Damasha, I'm gonna give it over to you. Anything you want to summarize before we end up?
I just want to say, wow. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I got to take some real, like, not that when Dr. Sierra speak, I take notes, but y'all had me like, I couldn't keep up for a minute because I didn't want to miss nothing. But I appreciate you all for coming on the show. We're going to definitely have to have you come back on a different topic because the conversation with more time would have gotten a little bit deeper. And the conversation went exactly where I prayed it would go because there were some things that you said that I hope people really listen to, especially in our community of people, especially when it comes to us coming together and how the family has been deconstructed and, how we don't have to drop it lows or something like that. I'm gonna remember that, Dr. C. I'm gonna write it down later because I'm gonna say that.
Indeed.
But later on when we talk, we're gonna talk about that. So, but it just was a powerful conversation, and I felt like this conversation had to come from men because you can see like women, we're always out there, like we're always out there, we're always out there talking, we're always on platforms. Women, we like, you know what I'm saying, but it's very rare that we see people that look like us out talking, and everybody comes from different walks of life. So I'm glad that God allowed us to choose that way, or He picked it and we received it that way. So I appreciate you all, and that's all I want to say. Dr. Sierra, you want to say something, and then we can let them do closing.
Yes, I just want to thank again. I don't want to overtalk because it's already been there, so I don't feel the need to add anything other than thank you. You all have lives and families and jobs, so I'm it's not lost on me that this hour and then even just the prayer or preparing for this took away from your time. So we are really grateful that you agreed to come, especially a lot of you last minute and share your perspective, because for us it is important to get a male perspective. Oftentimes I do think that sometimes it's like, oh, we don't want to hear from them, and so sometimes you hear the women chattering, but it's important for the male perspective as well. So thank you for your energy. That's all I have.
Any closing remarks, fellas? We can make it to at least 3 minutes if you want to do a closing remark, just to encourage.
I like to say, we all just should work on being a better self. Like, just be better for yourself, and that way we all can be better for someone else in the future.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
I would like to thank you guys for the opportunity to let us into your clubhouse. I know we don't belong here, so thank you, and also thank you for being graceful. I think you guys handled this with a lot of grace, and I think that is worthy to be recognized. And finally, I just want to just kind of duplicate what Mr. Eric said. Ultimately, is about self-actualization. It's about relationships, about building the community. It's not about self. Although, in order to do it well, you have to be well put together.
Thank you.
Amen
Yeah,
to that.
yeah. Hey, Eric, we truly appreciate it, man, because you started that conversation all the way around the board, and I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to Demasha, Dr. Davis. Man, I'm a life coach as well, and one of the things that I want to say to the world of people is we can't do it by ourselves. Us as people need to come together and do it together, whatever relationship it is. If it's just a relationship of, hey, you cook cornbread well, okay, you fix the cornbread. Hey, you make pies well, hey, you make the pies. When I grew up, I remember walking the path, taking people cakes, and was told, if you drop this cake, we're gonna whoop your butt. But as I'm taking a cake, I was also bringing back a pie. That community was great, and I think that's the thing that we need to do as a group of people, is create that community. And don't worry about dropping the cake. We got more stuff to make another one now before we did. So, thank you
Thank
again.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
y'all know I'm not gonna hold y'all. So we're gonna say good night. We appreciate everyone who came on to look and who watches the after effect, the pre-recorded video. If you still want to share the video, gentlemen, you can. You want to say something?
I want to say to Eric, man, we need to connect since we're in the same city, bro.
Exactly. I wouldn't mind doing that.
No doubt, bro. I'm with you. And Ray, we're gonna get up anyway. We family, so I ain't gotta worry about not seeing you.
Yeah, we'll make it
Thank you,
happen.
ladies, again. And
Thank
thank you,
you so
brothers, again
much.
for sharing.
Thank you.
And no
You all
doubt,
have a
man.
good night.
Blessings to
Okay.
everybody, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, everyone. We love you.
Good night.